6th chords. I call these the master chord shape because they're some of the most versatile chords in music. Now you might have learned a 6th chord at some point and you might be thinking, how do I actually use 6th chords to create more beautiful chord progressions? Well, in today's lesson, I'm going to show you 3 ways that I like to use 6th chords to make my playing sound so much more interesting. You're going to learn my chord color technique to make your chords sound more beautiful, my chord stacking technique to take chord progressions and instantly make them sound better, plus 3 of my favorite pro sounding runs that I love to play down the piano that use 6th chords. So if you're ready to take your playing to the next level using these techniques, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, first we're going to do a quick review of 6th chords. If you already know all of your 6th chords and you're comfortable playing them up and down the piano, you can skip ahead to the 3 techniques. So there are 2 types of 6th chords. You have what's called a major 6th chord, which is a major chord, and you add a note a whole step above the top note. And we have a minor 6th chord. This is when you play a minor chord and you add a note a whole step above the top note. Now you might be thinking, okay, Johnny, that sounds really simple. I can play a 6th chord, but I would really challenge you on this. Can you comfortably play all of your 6th chords up and down the piano? Well, if you can't, then I highly recommend that you go through these 3 essential 6th chord exercises. But before I teach these to you, if you're enjoying the lesson, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. All right, the first exercise is a block exercise. It's very simple. Basically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna block the C6 chord in all of the inversions. Okay, so this is called root position. It has the root on the bottom. First inversion has the 3rd on the bottom, 2nd inversion, this is 3rd inversion, and then you go back up to your root position and you bring it down the piano. Now you can do this with your left hand as well. Root position, 1st inversion, 2nd inversion, 3rd inversion, and then we bring all of these inversions down the piano. The second exercise is really helpful if you want to play melodies using 6th chords. Maybe you want to solo with these types of chords. So for this exercise, we're going to break up our 6th chords. Okay, it's a simple broken exercise. We're arpeggiating each of the chord positions, bringing them up, and then from here we can bring them down. Okay, it's a really simple exercise. And then you can do the same thing in your left hand. We're going to just arpeggiate each inversion and then bring it down. Now the third exercise is my favorite exercise because it's really going to help you become a better soloist at the piano. And for this exercise, it's going to help you practice patterns with your 6th chords. So here's how this exercise works. Doesn't that sound nice? Basically, I'm taking each 6th chord and I'm doing this pattern, the bottom note, the next note, the top note, and then we're going to bring it down. You see the pattern? And then we do it here. Bottom note, next note, top note, bring it down, right? See the pattern? And then from here, we're going to flip it, okay? We're going to go top, down, bottom, up. Next inversion, top, down, bottom, up. You see the pattern? And you can play this same exercise in your left hand. And then bring it down. Now, once you've practiced these exercises, I encourage you to play the same exercises over your C minor 6 chord. So you can block them, then you can do arpeggiated, and then the pattern. Now you might be thinking, okay, Johnny, this sounds great. I'm gonna practice my 6th chords up and down the piano, and I'm gonna get really good at playing them. But how do I actually use them in my playing? Well, this brings us to part 2 of this lesson. And in this section, I'm going to show you 3 of my favorite techniques for 6th chords. You're going to learn how to make your chords more beautiful, how to make your progressions more interesting, and you're going to learn some really sweet runs down the piano. We're going to start with technique 1, which is more of a beginner technique. So if you're new to 6th chords, this technique is for you. What we're going to do with 6th chords is we're going to take an ordinary sounding song and we're going to make the chords sound so much more interesting. And as an example, we're going to use the tune Ode to Joy. Okay, Notice how our left-hand chords are very simple. However, you can make these chords sound so much more interesting by transforming them into 6th chords, which sounds like this. So what am I doing? Well, I'm taking my major chords and I'm turning them into 6th chords. And you can do this on the C chord, you can also do it on the F chord, make it an F6. So now instead of playing these ordinary major chords, you have this. Okay, it has a lot more color on your chords. You can also use this chord coloring technique on tunes that use minor chords. For example, if you took the tune We Three Kings, this has 2 minor chords, C minor and F minor. Well, what if we turn these chords into 6th chords? Check out what it sounds like now. Okay, they're a lot more interesting. By the way, I wanted to mention that the lesson sheet music you're seeing up here on the top left of your screen is downloadable and printable. You can also change the key of this entire lesson with the click of one button with our smart sheet music. So I'll put a link to all of that below. All right, technique 2 is more of an intermediate level technique, and I love this technique because you can take your chord progressions and instantly make them sound really cool. And here's what I mean. We're gonna take a super common chord progression in jazz called the 2-5-1, where we play a D minor chord, a G chord, and a C major chord. Okay, so we're in the key of C major. This is a 2 chord, this is a 5 chord, and this is a 1 chord. Now, let's say you wanted to make this chord progression sound more interesting. Well, one of my favorite ways to do this is with a technique which I call the instant 6th technique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some 6th chords over these bass notes and check out what the chord progression now sounds like. So how was I able to do this? Well, there's actually a very simple trick that you can use to transform your chord progressions, and here's how it goes. Basically, if you have a minor chord, like let's say you had a C minor, well, if you play a major 6th chord on the 3rd, you end up with a much more interesting minor chord called a minor 7th chord. Now, if you have a dominant 7 chord, like a C7, then what you want to do is play a minor 6 chord on the 5th. That's our G. So I'm going to play a G minor 6, and now this turns it into a much more interesting C9 chord. Finally, if you have a major chord, then if you play a major 6th on the 5th, it makes the chord sound way more interesting. So we're going to play a G major 6 on the C, and now give this chord a listen. Okay, this turns it into a really cool chord called a C major 9 chord. So if we go back to our 2-5-1 chord progression in C, here's how we would apply this idea. On the 2 chord, the D, we're gonna play a major 6th chord on the 3rd, the F. On the 5 chord, the G, we're gonna play a minor 6th chord on the 5th, the D, and on the 1 chord, the C, we're gonna play a major 6th chord on the 5th, which is G, and we have this. So we have 2, 5, 1, and if we invert the middle chord, we have 2, 5, 1. Now, I would encourage you to try this technique on some other chord progressions. For example, let's say you had a chord progression that went C major, E minor, F major, G major. Well, how would you apply the 6th chord technique to this? Well, on the C chord, let's play a major 6th on the 5th. Way more interesting. Then on the E chord, let's play a major 6th chord on the 3rd, on the G. It's actually the same chord. And then on the F, we're going to play a major 6th chord based on the C. Okay? So that's up here. We're going to invert this down like this. Way more interesting F chord. And then on the G chord, we're going to play a minor 6th chord based on the 5th, the D. That's going to be up here. And we can invert this down here, or even once more like this. Okay, so here's the full chord progression. By the way, if you want to learn more about upper structures and how to use these to color some of your most common chords, check out our full-length course on this topic, Coloring Dominant Chords with Upper Structures. I'll put a link to that below. All right, the third technique is a little bit more of an advanced technique. And for this one, you're going to play some amazing runs down the piano using 6th chords. And as an example, let's say you're playing the classic jazz tune, It Had to Be You. Well, you can play some amazing sounding runs down the piano in the little gaps of that melody using 6th chords, which sound like this. So what am I doing? Well, anytime there's a gap in the melody, I do a run down the piano. Okay? And you can do this on any of your chords, like the A7. And what I'm doing is I'm playing a 6th chord run down the piano over each of these chords. So on the C chord, I'm playing a C6, and I'm just arpeggiating it down the piano and landing on the G. Same with the A7. I'm going to play a run based on the E minor 6th chord that I taught you earlier. And so we're going to take this chord, we're going to actually invert it up like this, and this is going to be our run down the piano. So we have... we land on the G. Now you might be thinking, okay Johnny, the theory makes sense, but how do I actually practice these runs so that I can use them on tunes? Well, I've put together 3 essential exercises to help you master these runs. The first exercise is going to be over a C6 chord in the left hand, and for the left hand I like to go root, chord, and then down to the 5th, the G, and up to the chord. The run is going to start on the C, which is the root up here, and we're going to play a C6 chord like this, and simply arpeggiate it down to the piano until we get to the C, and the C is the landing spot. Now what you want to do is start with your hands together, but when you get down to the C in your left hand, you want that to line up on beat 3 with the G in your left hand. So I'm going to do it quickly so you can hear what it sounds like, and then I'll do it slowly. Okay, and here it is really slowly. You can also do the same type of run with the E on the top. Or you can do the same run with the G on top. Lastly, you can play runs on your other chords like your A7. I mentioned earlier that you can use an E minor 6 chord for your run, and I like to use this position, okay? So you're going to start way up high, and here's the timing. And you can even try this on other chords like a minor chord. What if you have an F minor chord? Well, you can use your F minor 6 in your right hand. By the way, if you want to learn more runs like this, you can learn 6 of my favorite runs in our full-length course, Jazz Intro and Outro Runs. I'll put a link to that below. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, please let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out pianowithjohnny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.